I'm Shaun Bunn. I'm the Managing Director of Empire Metals. We're an AIM-listed but Australian-focused copper-gold explorer, and we're looking at an emerging giant copper province in our project called Pitfield.
Shaun, hello. We're in South Africa.
Yeah.
Amazing. What are you doing here?
Well, I've got one-to-one meetings this week. It's part of our, our reach out to continue to explain what we're doing, in our project portfolio in Australia.
Hunting for giants.
We're hunting for giants. It's an emerging giant.
Emerging giant. Well, look, you put out a release this morning, but I'm lucky enough to see it just before we started speaking because it hadn't even come out yet. You've got some quite nice numbers showing there.
Well, yeah, it's the build-up of a story. I think we discussed before. We're on a path, if you like, where we wanted to build up to a high level of confidence in a drilling target. There were a number of items that we had to tick off. You know, the geochemistry at surface, soil sampling, rock sampling we've announced previously. And we were moving towards this final geophysical survey, an IP survey, which we announced this morning. We've got the results, finally interpreted those, and we found what I think is probably, it's at least a
beginning of something big.
1.5 kilometre long strike, highly chargeable area that's very closely associated with this big magnetic anomaly.
Yeah.
So there's something happening there.
Well, let's explain to people the process that you've been through, because they'll be looking at wonderful, colourful diagrams below, but not necessarily knowing how to interpret them. So you've kind of got this sort of shallow anomaly over, 1,500 metres by 800 metres, that sort of size?
That's just at the top end of our licence, yes.
Right, so it's outcropping to surface. So it's encouraging, but it doesn't necessarily guarantee anything. So tell us about the process you've been through to be able to release this data, and then what's next?
So what we've done is, if you go even further back, when we started, we chose, I guess, the Pitfield area. This is a near-Proterozoic basin. It's a unique geological area that's renowned for copper deposits. There were high-grade copper mines there, historically. CRA, BHP had worked the soils, worked the land. They'd done a lot of sampling, so we had a good database, and we had a gravity high, from the state government's survey work, but it's still very much underexplored. So we started with magnetics. We did an airborne magnetics that lit the 40-kilometre zone up like a Christmas tree. We then did a conductivity survey with electromagnetics, and that highlighted, again, the same anomaly as being highly resistive, which is a sign of silification. So we've got all these geological events coming into play. The reality is it's not been drilled.
Yeah.
So 40 kilometres, lots of things lighting up. Where do we go? And so the IP survey was so important because it came up with these broad areas of chargeability. So what we're saying is you put an electric current into the ground and you're getting an electrical response from something which is typically, this is characteristic of sulfides. Yeah. So we're hunting. This.
There's the thing. Okay, so there's lots of clues and lots of ifs, buts, and maybes, right? So you as a company have got like a big land package. Okay, right? So for junior companies, that's a tough one. You've got to work out how and where you allocate your capital. So you've got a bunch of anomalies.
Yes.
One of these anomalies is in this 5% of your land package, and you've been lucky enough to have access to that and do the geophysics components of it, but you're going to need to drill it.
We have to drill it in terms of characterizing it.
Right.
So I'm not necessarily going to be hunting a big copper deposit.
Right. Well, this is important.
On day one.
Lay this out properly. People get excited too early and then maybe lead to disappointment at some point. So you go, what type of drilling do you do? How much of it do you do? When are you going to do it? Because last time we spoke, it was going to be towards the end of this year, maybe.
Yeah.
Have you changed your mind a bit?
Well, we're going to bring it forward because we now feel that we need to characterise this anomaly. So understand what I'm really saying here is we'll put it'll be an RC, won't be diamond, doesn't need to be diamond. It's not deep, maybe 150, 200 metre drilling into the zone. Yeah. And we want to see what it is. Are we picking up sulfides?
Yeah.
We're pretty certain that's the indicators are all pointing to that.
Remind us why that's important again.
Well, the sulfides, what we're generally looking for in this disseminated type deposit, this is what they call a strata-bound sediment-hosted copper target. So in other words, you've got this sandstones, these layers, hot fluids have come up, leached out the copper from the basement rock. It's come up to the surface, and then it reacts with the sandstones, the carbonates or the organics in the sandstones, and the copper drops out. That's the theory. We've got copper at surface, high-grade copper, coming to the surface through old workings. And our rock, the rock that we highlighted last week, 18% copper. 125 grams of silver. That is not a low-grade chalcopyrite ore. That is high-grade copper. So bornite, chalcosites.
Which is sort of typical of the Chilean sort of hopefully somewhere near 1% level. You're talking nearly 18% here. So something interesting is happening. Something
very interesting has happened. So what we're trying to do is put all of that together. I won't say it's overwhelming, but what we've got is a lot of information to try and pull apart, dissect, and say, right, well, where will we go, or how do we advance this to the next level? Do we keep doing IP surveys and looking for more chargeable targets? Do we keep doing soil sampling and saying, oh, look, we've got copper in soil? Or do we put drill holes into this and say, we can then see what's happening 200-300 metres down and make better decisions about where we go next?
Well, this thing for junior companies with a small market cap, with a certain amount of cash in the bank, you're going to need to refill the coppers at some point, and you've got to choose when, is you've got that dance between how you would do it as a pure geologist, how you come after this thing, versus the responsibility to current shareholders, future, is put out some interesting data. Like today's announcement, it will be interesting to people. There's a big numbers there compared to what they're not used to seeing. So you've got to get that dance and that tension right. So come back to the drilling question, but in terms of, okay, shallow, we know that, you said that, 150 meters, it's RC as well, cheap, great. Is how much of that do you do with your current cash balance before you go to market and say, look, it's clearly interesting. I think we need to drill the jizz out of this thing. Let's raise some capital here, because you've got to manage your cash.
We have to manage the cash, but the exciting thing, I think, is we've got the money in the bank. We're not short of cash at the moment. If we start drilling and we start hitting copper sulfides, or start to see the footprint, if you like, or the start of this emerging giant. I don't want to stop drilling.
No, of course not. Absolutely.
That's just the value to the company will become by us getting into this structure and getting a much better, size, if you like, or scale of this. So. I'm tempted. I'll be honest. I'm tempted to say, right, well, if the market's supporting this drilling campaign, let's raise enough money to execute it properly.
And what does that look like? What does that mean?
It's not a huge sum of money to get on the ground. We're talking about, in terms of this current program, we'll probably spend less than $500,000 Aussie. So, £300,000. I've got that. But I'd like to be able to have the it's an insurance. It's the flexibility that you have by saying, we're onto something, we've got momentum. I don't have to stop and say, right, let's pull up stumps for 6 months while we And look, I'll be honest, I've got other projects to go and think about as well. We're not a one-trick pony.
I know you're not, but I think historically, if we came along, that was the kind of the problem here. So being quick to kill projects off is good. We've talked about that in the past with you. And yes, you've got optionality elsewhere, but the excitement lies with copper. The best reactions in the market for juniors that we've been speaking to has been copper projects. Okay, not a lot of it around, and certainly not sort of the numbers that you've got. And if you're going big, that becomes even more interesting. So copper should be the focus. So how do you ensure that people stay interested in your company and this copper story going forward? I know RC drilling and I know it's shallow, but you've got to come at it a certain way.
But the beauty of this IP information, so there's layers here that come to play. So the IP has identified something, huge in the ground over, 1,500 metres, 800 metres wide. It's massive. We drill it, we know what we're dealing with. We've got a much better understanding of what that signature is. I don't have to go scattering the whole 40 Ks with a drill rig.
Right.
I'll go and get another IP survey out there and say, right, well, I need to find more of these conductors.
Yeah.
If I can show that these things are related to copper sulfides, if I can demonstrate that within those targets are going to be economic ore bodies, then my first priority is to identify where else are these IP anomalies sitting along the 40 kilometre zone. Now, just to finish that, what we went back to was the airborne electromagnetics. So we flew this thing all over the whole 40, over the 1,000 square kilometres. And we're now trying to match up on the electromagnetics, on that high level conductivity response. How did that pick up any of these little chargeable conductors that we found with the IP survey? And we're starting to draw, we can draw, if you like, on a massive map. Oh, there's these little lights, these little, let's call them Christmas lights, they're little sparkles. Do the IP on those, because if that is also an indicator of a large chargeable target, do those. We know then that we've got, multiple deposits along that 40 kilometre line. We can come back and drill that in 3 months' time, 6 months' time. We don't have to spend the big bucks on drilling on the entire license.
Yeah, okay. And what I'm trying to get at here is, because I've seen lots of small juniors come and go, and it's the constant raising of equity, trying to make a discovery. All those things that kind of excite the market. Companies will come and talk to me about, we've got X number of anomalies. Great. We therefore have Y number of targets. Great. But it doesn't mean anything to the market. Okay, it means something to you as a geologist, because you say we're able to say we're thoroughly encouraged with what we're seeing here, and the way process we go through. And if you had your own way and enough money and time to do this yourself, you would just kind of systematically go through that. But you've got to get the market going here. So you need like one bit of success, and then a whole bunch of anomalies after that. Go, well, they'll have cookie cutter. They have great success over here. They found something over here. They'll probably do the same thing with these anomalies. But until you've had that success, it's just a bunch of red blobs on a screen to most people.
Correct.
You know what I mean?
Correct, and that I absolutely share the same view. So the drilling target, and you don't know until you start drilling. Yeah. We don't know. We may not. We don't know what we're hunting quite yet. It's going to be elusive maybe. So we've got to sit there and say, right, well, let's put a hole in, let's put another hole in, let's put our program together. We've reduced the risk of drilling in the wrong spot. I think we're drilling in the right spots. Yeah. Let's find out what we're going to, let's find out what is there before we, make further announcements or predictions.
About being efficient with your drilling. And I think that's what the market's like saying, right? Is there a huge degree of success based on the process that you've been through to date? Drill with the RC, put something out to market. You've got to assess and go, was the market encouraged by that? In which case, now's the time to raise some capital. Or do we put the reins on a bit and wait till the market gets a little bit more excited about this? In which case you start to become a little bit out of control. So I appreciate you got money at the moment. I don't know. Yep. What is the cash position?
Probably in the range of about £1 million still in the cash position.
Right. So that's what is that, Aussie?
In Aussie, that's close to 1.7 million Australian.
Okay, so you're okay for a while.
Yeah, we don't have a big burn rate. We don't have a big overhead.
Yeah.
We maintain our portfolio at a we've been working across the portfolio, so we're not in a situation where we have to rush out and spend money on a particular target.
Yeah, but it's better to spend it and learn stuff, and then be able to talk to the market about it. But you've also got this to, again, delicate dance. So you don't want to run the coffers down too low, because then you're beholden to the market, susceptible to all sorts of challenges, right? So give us the sense of timing, because people will be looking and saying, right, I need to understand where there's a growth component if you hit some good drilling, but what's the timing of this? Are we still waiting until the end of the year before there's some kind of reaction?
I think clearly, what we're saying, and we've made it, I think, reasonably clear, is that we're planning our maiden drill campaign at Pitfield. We think that'll probably be within the next 2 to 3 months once we get.
Okay, pretty quick.
Very quick, because bearing in mind we're working within a farming community. The opportunity to get onto these sites is we can do that most times, but to minimise disruption to crops,
right? Yeah.
We've talked about that.
What are they growing there?
Wheat.
Is wheat?
It's
Okay,
a big wheat region. So, I mean, look, there's no particular. It doesn't prevent us from going into a paddock with wheat, but then we have to pay compensation and it inconvenience the landowner.
Yeah.
We want to maintain those relationships. We want to build trust. So the opportunity for us to get onto the paddocks is now, the next few months before they start seeding. So I'm going to take that opportunity. It's the right time, the right target, the right commodity. It's all come together. I'm not going to sit there and fish or cut bait, sort of story. I'm going to drill this.
Right.
And look, if the market wants to get behind us now and accelerate and give us the momentum now, that's great. If the market wants to sit back and watch what comes out of that drilling, fine too, because we're not desperate for that cash.
Yeah.
We will let the drill holes do their work. We'll get the information out there when it happens, and we'll see what we've got.
Can't ask for fairer than that, Shaun.
No.
Good man. Good to see you in South Africa.
Thank you.
Next 2 days. I know there's a lot of people down here looking for investment. Here's a big clue. There's a lot of brokers. They're sniffing fees. I suspect there's going to be a lot of money raised this year. Copper's big part of the story, I think, this year. EV thematic still running strong. So we wish you well.
I like copper.